Okay, I think we can slowly get started as we have quite a packed agenda today and we want to cover quite a lot of material. So we can start now. So good morning, everyone. Thank you for making the time and really hope as you're joining this call, you're interested in this topic. Who am I? My name is Matteo. I work for the European Cybersecurity Organization, and as such, we're part of the consortium CyberStan, which is a dev project that is intended to support the development of harmonized standard for the Cyber Resilience Act. What is this session today about? So, first and foremost, this session is about standards. Why standards are important? What are standards? Well, many of you probably are already familiar with it. But in essence, standards help you implementing legislation because they translate the requirement of legislation into technical guidance. So if standards are good enough, can be followed also beyond the legislation they've been drafted for. But what is quite interesting for the EU ecosystem is that when we talk about harmonized standards, they're very important because they give you presumption of conformity. So they can basically make sure that presume that you are in conformance with the law. But standards goes, as I said, beyond that. They're very important. In the EU ecosystem, they're also used by market authorities to make sure that regulation are applied correctly, but also, for instance, by third parties, assessment bodies to test that you're actually implementing the law correctly. What we heard recently, and as recently as yesterday or last week in few conferences we've been, is that despite there's a lot of interest in the standardization process, many ICT professionals were stating that they find it a bit difficult to understand how to join the process, how to support the standardization process. And for some of them, or the comment we received, it was also, they perceived it was kind of a black box. So we decided to have, along a series of webinars, we decided to have this session to demystify a little this process and this approach. We'd like today to go into the nitty-gritty details on how to join the work of standardization, in particular, getting an overview from the European Standardization Organization. So the target audience today is really not necessarily with someone who is not completely unfamiliar with the standards, but more with people who would like to join the process and they simply don't know how to do it. So as I said, the agenda for today is quite packed. We're gonna hear about European standardization landscape in general by Biljana Tosic from the University of Belgrade. And after that, we'll deep dive in the topics on how to participate in standardization channels, and also getting the perspective of what does it mean to start and joining this work as a newcomer. Something that is also being interesting raised in the last few weeks is that you might be an expert, for instance, in cybersecurity in the context of the Cyber Resilience Act, but you might not be familiar with standards. You need to become an expert on standards. And so that's require a learning curve. So we'll hear about all these by Lucia Lamprey from Sensenelect, and we'll hear about it from Alton Mulligan, working at Etsy. We hope then to get some time also for some Q&A. Before we get started and I give the floor to Biljana, I would like also to remind you of more session like this one where we're trying to raise awareness. In particular, next week at CyberStan, we're having a session on how standards can benefit smaller enterprises. And quite crucially, on the 8th of April, there will be a standard organized by the Danish Standard Organization. That was part of the stakeholder consultation phase where the European Standardization Organization are trying to get feedback when it comes to the horizontal standard for the Cyber Resilience Act. So I will paste these two sessions in the chat. It's quite important to follow them because this is really the time is now where the standard being drafted and when we need this stakeholder consultation. Now, with no further ado, I'll give the floor to Biljana and let's get started.
Thank you very much. I would just like to share my screen.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Luigi, I must have sent a request for screen sharing.
Right now?
Thank you. Okay. Okay. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Okay, so it really is a great pleasure for me to be here today to speak on such an important topic. European standardization landscape and key players. Understanding the role of European standards organizations, their relationship with legislation, and how to engage with them. I will try in the next couple of minutes to give a brief introduction on European standardization landscape and key players. And to do so, we must start from the beginning. So, basically, what is important to understand is that European standardization landscape relies on a collaborative consensus building process, which engages a wide range of stakeholders, ensuring comprehensive and constructive outcomes. As the development of standards is mainly initiated by market needs, industry, of course, plays a key role. So, European standards are then developed through one of the three European standards organizations. We have the European Committee for Standardization, CEN, the European Committee for Electrotechnical Standardization, CENELEC, and the European Telecommunication Standards Institute, or ETSI. So, although I'm sure our colleagues from these organizations are going to go in greater detail about the significant work they're doing, I just want to introduce them briefly just to know who are the key players. So first we have CEN, which is the European Committee for Standardization, which brings together national standards bodies of 34 European countries. CEN provides a platform for the development of European standards and, of course, other technical documents in relation to various kinds of products, materials, services, and processes, and in relation to a wide range of fields and sectors, including air and space, chemicals, construction, consumer products, defense and security, energy, the environment, ICT, and so on. Secondly, we have CENELEC, which is the European Committee for Electrotechnical Standardization, which brings together the national electrotechnical committees of 34 European countries. CENELEC prepares voluntary standards in the electrotechnical field, which help facilitate trade between countries, create new markets, cut costs, and support the development of a single market, again in relation to a wide range of fields and sectors, including electromagnetic compatibility, accumulators, primary cells, primary batteries, electronics, and so on. Last but not least, we have ETSI, which is the European Telecommunication Standards Institute, which provides an open and inclusive and collaborative environment to support the timely development, ratification, and testing of globally applicable standards for ICT-enabled systems, applications, and services. These three organizations, CEN, CENELEC, and ETSI, have been officially recognized by the European Parliament and Council of the European Union as competent to deal with standardization, especially voluntary technical standardization. So, besides these three organizations, we of course have other stakeholders. They comprise national standards bodies, small and medium-sized enterprises, which are usually represented by the Small Business Standards or SBS. We have consumers, trade unions, environmental organizations, which are represented by, let's say, ANEC, which is the European Consumer Voice and Standardization, ETUC, which is the European Trade Union Confederation, and of course, ECOS, which stands for Environmental Coalition on Standards. Finally, we have public authorities that develop standards receptive legislation, give mandates and public procurement, and offer funding to both European standards organizations and national standards bodies. So what actually are European standards? As European standardization organizations define them, they are documents which set out technical specifications and other technical information related to various kinds of products, services, materials, and processes. European standards are valuable tools for strengthening the competitiveness of European companies, thereby creating the conditions for economic growth. They reduce unnecessary costs for both suppliers and purchasers of products and services in both public and private sectors. And of course, European standards are key instruments for consolidating the single market and facilitating cross-border trade, both within Europe and also with the rest of the world. So how does it work? Basically, SAN-SANELEC and their national members and committees work jointly to develop and define standards that are considered necessary by either market actors or to support the implementation of European legislation. Indeed, the majority of European standards are initiated by all these stakeholders and developed in collaboration with all these stakeholders and interested parties. Around 30% of them are mandated by the European Commission in the framework of EU legislation. So, when it comes to SAN-SANELEC, we can say that around 30% of the European standards, which are published by SAN-SANELEC, have been developed following so-called standardization requests made by the Commission. These are specific requests made by the European Commission to European Standards Organisations, SAN-SANELEC and ETSI, to develop and adopt European standards and other European standardization deliverables, such as technical specifications, technical reports, guides, SAN-SANELEC guides, workshop agreements, and so on, to support European harmonization legislation. Many of these standards are today known as harmonized standards, and they enable businesses to ensure that their products and services comply with essential requirements that have been set out in European legislation, namely EU directives. So in such situation, we have a situation where European harmonized standards provide the presumption of conformity with relevant legislation, with essential requirements which have been set out in relevant legislation. When it comes to all European standards organizations, SAN-SANELEC and ETSI, we may say that about a fifth of all European standards published by SAN-SANELEC and ETSI have been developed following these standardization requests made by the Commission. But what is important to understand is that European standards and European standardization deliverables, even if drafted upon a request in support of EU legislation, usually remain voluntary. However, when European standards are adopted, national standards bodies should transpose them into identical national standards and also withdraw any conflicting national standards. So, to summarize, the members of SAN-SANELEC are 43 different national standards bodies, national committees located in 34 different European countries, including all the member states of the European Union and other countries that are part of the European single market. So after the publication of a European standard, each national standards body or committee is obliged to withdraw any national standard which conflicts with the new European standard. Thereby, one European standard becomes the national standard in all the 34 member states. This is why we like to say that European standards and European standardization landscape are unique on the global stage. Thank you very much. Lucia, Holtan, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Liana, for that introduction to the three standardization organizations. So I'm going to share my slides now because now we would like to share with you also the perspective from SEN, SANELEC, and ETSI. So I will start with the ones from SEN and SANELEC, and then I will pass the floor to Ultan from ETSI. So I hope you can see the screen now. And hi, everyone. My name is Lucia Lanfrey, and I'm a project manager at SEN and SANELEC. So we would like to give you some insights about what is it to be part and how you can become part of our work. And so this is a little bit what we will see today. And as Liana has introduced you already, we are SEN and SANELEC 2 out of the 3 European Standards Organizations together with ETSI. And we are officially recognized as European Standards Organizations. But one regulation that is very important is simple to read regulation and gives already a lot of insights about how standardization, European standardization works. Is a regulation 1025. So these are really important piece of regulation for us. As Biljana was introducing before, SEN and SENELEC, we have 34 members. We have members in 34 countries, sorry. And then you can see sometimes we have for SEN and SENELEC 2 different members. For example, take the case of Germany where we have DIN and DKI. But sometimes we have other cases when there is only one national standards body, like the case of Denmark, they only have one. So if you are in the audience recognizing your country here, then you will quickly also recognize either there are one for SENELEC and one for SEN, or there is one. But the most important conclusion here is that these are bodies, organizations that you can contact. Each one, they have a website with information on how you can join. Each country does it in a different, slightly different way. But this is the entry point really for you to start connecting. You can always contact them and raise your interest, ask questions. They will be happy to reply and to answer all of your questions regarding what kind of technical committees they are working on and how you can join. So this is the first step. First, to understand that SEN and SENELEC are the European level, but we actually work based on the national participation. So we also have cooperation on the national and international level. And you may recognize the ISO, IEC, ITU are the international standards organizations. And then we have, of course, at the European level, as we said before, we work with ISO, IEC, and ITU with some agreements. So the Vienna and Frankfurt agreements are the ones that we use at SEN and SENELEC. And then these agreements allow that we can work sometimes in parallel and even develop some deliverables at the same time. So we follow this, we do mirror committees, and we follow the developments international as well. And we have also the national authorities, and there is engagement through the national parts. And here, as you can see, the ones at the national level can be really standards users, environmental NGOs, consumer bodies, industry, research organizations. So everyone is really welcome to join via the national members. And that is how you connect then with SEN and with SENELEC. So how it works, of course, we are very much aware of the market needs, and that is a very important motor for us. And industry, including SMEs, professionals, academia, they are connected with the national bodies. And then they come and work all together at the SEN-SENELEC or SEN or SENELEC level, depending on the nature of the technical committee, the topic they are working on. And they come together in working groups, in TC, this means technical committees, that have embedded working groups to develop the standards. And that is how also we connect with the policy needs as well. So by one hand, we have the market needs, by the other hand, we have the policy needs. And do you remember we mentioned the regulation 1025? Well, that regulation has an annex, the Annex 3, that mentions a number of EU institutions that was also mentioned by Biljana, for example, like ANEC, like ECOS, representing different societal and environmental interests. And these are also part of our technical committees as well. So we all come together, taking into account the policy needs as well, and develop different kind of standards. It is a key priority to be inclusive. So we have, this is one of our 5 goals identified in the SEN-SENELEC strategy for 2030. And it's very important for us to encourage the participation of societal stakeholders and SMEs. And also the commitment is reinforced by the regulation 1025 via these Annex 3 organizations that I was saying before, ANES, ECOS, and the ones you see there. And also in the EU standardization strategy, this is really reinforced. So this is a little bit about the inclusiveness and the Annex 3 organizations as per the regulation 1025. And this is very important because These organizations can participate in the technical committees, so they are always welcome, and they can participate in every any technical committee that we have at the moment. We also have something important, so you can either come and be nominated to participate via the national committees, or if there is an organization that can become a partner or a liaison of the CENELEC, then there is also something that we have to explain that concept of joining us. It's the Guide 25, and we have different ways of incorporating the collaboration. This is, for example, where we have an industry association, for instance, that represent multiple interests. They can become a liaison organization of one of our technical committees. So it's a little bit different than joining via the different national members, as I was saying before. There are different categories, but for example, what they can do is to represent the different interests, they provide inputs, and then they get to participate in the different technical committees. So this is a little overview for you to know who is sitting around the table when we work, and how we can also include stakeholder participation. That will come in the second part of my presentation. I will show you then how we work, but before we jump onto that, I would like to pass the floor to Ultan, who will also give you an introduction. Ultan, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Lucia. I will just share a screen. So, good morning. My name is Ultan Mulligan. I'm Chief Services Officer at ETSI. I will first of all like to give you some introduction to where we are with cybersecurity standardization at ETSI, who's doing what, and where things are. And then in the second part of the presentation, after Lucia presents again, I will come back to talking about in detail how to get involved, what practical steps do you need to take. But first of all, let's understand where to get involved at that level of activity. First of all, some words about ETSI. We are, like CEN and CENELEC, and has been mentioned in the introduction, a recognized European Standardisation Organisation recognized by the European Union. We're a little bit different in structure and mechanism from CEN and CENELEC, although the same regulation applies to ETSI, and the same broad activities are the same. Broad outlook is occurring in ETSI. We have the same obligation and the same openness towards, for example, what we call the Annex 3 organization, taking into account societal stakeholders and broad level of interests in Europe. Nevertheless, we are a member-driven organization where we have some 900 members from inside Europe and outside Europe. There is a slight difference in what the European members can work on and what level of rights they have compared with the non-European members, but broadly we're open to membership from across the world. We're of course an independent, not-for-profit organization. We have been existing since 1988, so we've over 30 years of experience and a track record in this. We have some highly successful technologies that are on the market and have been adopted worldwide. So in fact, we aim for our standards to be adopted or used at least globally. And the reason is the market, the ICT market that our members operate in, is a global market. It tends not to be national or regional. So we want that European technologies and European standards coming from ETSI are adopted throughout the world. That's how we can increase Europe's influence across the globe. Over that 30 plus years and across our 900 organizations, we have quite a large community of experts, innovators, the delegates that contribute to our work. In terms of the organizations that we have operating in ETSI, we have 25% of our members, a quarter, are SMEs. We even have micro enterprises, less than 10 employees, some consultants and things like this. Of course, we have large companies. We have most of the big names in the ICT industry that you could think of. But alongside them, we have government agencies, governments themselves, regulatory authorities, universities, academia, research bodies, public and private, and of course, as I mentioned, the societal stakeholder organizations. A key characteristic of ETSI is the direct participation of our members in our work. We don't use the national delegation principle in participating in ETSI. An organization, large or small, joins ETSI, pays an annual membership fee, depending on the type of organization they are. The largest ones pay the most, of course. The smallest ones pay the least. And those organizations, be they companies, be they government agencies or whatever, they decide what activities to get involved in. They send their delegates directly to our meetings, and those delegates decide directly what the content of the standards are. That's really the direct participation model that we have. When it comes to cybersecurity, the focus in ETSI, in particular for the Cyber Resilience Act, is our technical committee on cybersecurity called TC Cyber. We consider it a center of excellence on this activity. They don't just work on the Cyber Resilience Act, they work on a whole range of topics. They're looking at also quantum safe cryptography. You may have seen a press release about a recent publication on that last week. So they're looking at not just the regulatory aspects on policies and legislation which are driven, which, for example, the Cyber Resilience Act drives, but they also look at industry challenges, things that our members are facing on a day-to-day basis and that require standardization. So we have other groups who deal with cybersecurity, but mostly as part of their day-to-day work, in the sense that they are active on particular technologies or topics, and there is a security element related to that. One of the more notable ones is, for example, our TC-SAI on securing artificial intelligence. That is becoming increasingly important. But also we have security-related aspects on our electronic signatures and infrastructure TC-ESI committee. There's security concerns in, for example, intelligent transport systems, security of the mobile networks in 3GPP. Security basically crops up in every single technology or technical area, because we talk in ETSI about security by design. We don't want security bolted on as an afterthought. We need our technologies to be secure when we start conceiving them in the standardization committees. And here, basically, it's again more or less saying the same thing, pointing to the areas where we are working on in TC Cyber on the top left, the topics that they're working on. And on the right, the technologies, the systems, as I said, in each technical committee dealing with one of these, they handle security themselves as well, and refer back to TC Cyber as a center of excellence when necessary. Now, I want to take a quick look at the status of the CRA work at ETSI, because although this webinar is focused on how to get involved, we also need to look quickly at where to get involved and what needs to be done. We have a slide coming up after this one where we have some color coding to indicate the work items from the Cyber Resilience Act that are that ETSI is involved in. They're all being worked on jointly with CEN and CENELEC, but there are some specifically where ETSI has a certain level of competence and is directly involved. Thankfully, we have no yellow color-coded items on the next slide, but you'll see there's not so many that are dark green. So for the green ones, the dark green, we're up and running. We have the work item fully adopted inside ETSI and active work on it. The light green work items are those for which we have what we require in ETSI, a minimum of 4 supporting members to get work started, but we need a rapporteur. We need somebody who will guide the work, not necessarily writing all of the content, but we need the key person to drive this work. For the yellow ones and the gray ones there, we are missing either not enough ETSI members willing to contribute to it, or not a rapporteur on this yet. Now, rest assured, we will proceed on each of these because we are taking measures to ensure that we get rapporteurs. We are pressing hard on our members for this. And we're also reaching out to some of our partners, and in particular for some of these activities, we would expect to see contributions from the open source community. And we have already got some members in ETSI who are from the open source community and others in the process of joining. And we know that they intend to send their experts into these activities. So I would expect this chart to turn green in the next month or two for many of these standards. And just, I'm not going to read through this slide, but just to point out that for these work items, we have joint work where sometimes there's a SEN or SENELEC technical committee in the lead, and sometimes it's an ETSI technical committee, the ETSI committee being our technical committee cyber, and in particular this working group EUSR, which is the working group where all of these cyber resilience activities are taking place at ETSI. As I said, I'm not going to read through this, but it could be a useful piece of reference to show, you know, for a particular work item, where should I go? Is it ETSI? Is it SEN? Who's leading this work? And one final point in this section is that we have at the moment an open call for participation, but you need to be quick because it closes on the 31st of March. In other words, the very end of this month. It's been open already, I think, 6 weeks. We have a project to support this work, which is funded by the European Commission from their specific agency, which funds standardization activities. And we are funding the direct participation, in particular rapporteurs for this work, and also some project manager to ensure that this work progresses much faster. So at the top link, which you can click on when you get the slides immediately after this presentation, you will see a collective letter, which is an open letter to all our members and our partners to ask them to submit applications for this, what we call a specialist task force, or this project. Project is called Stand for CR2. It's just a name that we invented. Now, you don't need to be an ETSI or SEN or SENELEC member to apply or participate, but you would need a letter of support from an ETSI member, and you will probably find that there are ETSI members in the ETSI TC Cyber who will be willing to give a letter of support. Most national standards bodies that operate in ETSI are ETSI members. They would also be able to give you a letter of support, I'm sure. And if you do have any questions, do please email them quickly today if possible, because as I said, this closes on the 31st. So that means you need to move quickly. It closes, I think it's Monday evening it closes. And some very quick reminder of the timelines for this, at least on the ETSI side. This is quite short. Obviously, we want the drafting activities to be taking place at the moment. But during the month of, I think, September, we expect to have mature drafts for most of these work items available. And we will start a process of consultation to go beyond our members, beyond those who participate in the technical committee, because really the implications of the Cyber Resilience Act are quite large. And so therefore we have to try and reach beyond those who are directly involved. So we'll be conducting a series of outreach and stakeholder webinars. In the meantime, we will have to send the drafts to voting, a public inquiry during March, April, May timeframe of 2026, and deal with the comments that come back around about the June timeframe. If we do good consultation in the September, October, November period, then we would hope there would be minimal comments coming back in the resolution process. If there are substantial comments, that is going to delay the work because they have to be resolved, then the standards have to be reworked. Okay, as I said, I will pause here now and hand back to Matteo and probably to Lucia as well, because the next section I want to talk about is the practicalities of getting involved. So I want to get involved. What do I have to do to get involved? So back to you, Matteo or Lucia.
Thank you, Matteo. Thank you, Ultan, for your presentation. Here, I would like then to start complementing a little bit the slides of Ultan with how we are participating from the Sensenelec point of view and how the experts can get involved in the work. And also I will give you an overview, a quick overview about the standards for the Cyber Resilience Act and what it means that, that we are developing these harmonized standards, a little bit also to complement what Biljana told at the beginning. So we have many different technical committees, different business sectors at CEN and CENELEC. So we're not only working on the Cyber Resilience Act or the cybersecurity, but we have really a lot of technical committees and sectors that are very varied. As you can see in the slide, I try to summarize a little bit of all of the high-level sectors that we have. So it's not only possible to join for the Cyber Resilience Act activities, but really this is our presentations we're providing you today are really valid for any kind of standardization work, any kind of sector. Differently to what Ultan explained of the ETSI participation, we are working on a national delegation principle. So as you saw at the beginning of my previous slides, you find that in each of our members, you have the equivalent of CEN or CENELEC, but in the national level. And there is where you have to become a member of this national members of the CEN CENELEC, and they will nominate their experts to participate in their technical committees at the national level, which at the same time participate and nominated to be part of the technical committees that are actually drafting the standards at CEN and CENELEC level. And it's very important at the end that we have a varied participation at the national level, because the more experts we have, then the higher amount of views that we will have for developing the standards. And at the end of the day, what we will obtain is a draft standard that is based on consensus, representing the interests of all involved parties, including industry and SMEs. So it's very important to have a broad amount of views and expertise so that the standard that we get at the end is really strong, representing European values. As Biljana also mentioned in her presentation, standards remain voluntary. So almost never standards are mandatory to apply. So this is very important to know. And also, not only we have this channel of communication between national parties, but also there is communication between CEN and CENELEC and the European Commission, and also between the member states and the Commission as well. So it's really a continuous dialogue to develop these standards in a way that they are as beneficial for everyone as possible. A picture to recap again, this was the way where you can join a work, identifying where your company is based. This is not based on nationality. That's somehow a misconception that we have. We get a lot of time the question if I have to apply to the member that you see here where I'm the national from, but this is not the case. It's where the company is based or where the organization is based. So for this, it's really contacting the national member where you are located, basically. Then also how we work. Now this is a little bit how to take it from the hands-on perspective. So if you're a local stakeholder, this means that you have to get to your national level. As I said before, this is very important. Local stakeholders can be academia, industry, research organizations, NGOs, different really all kind of stakeholders are welcome. And they have to join via the national levels, and then they can contribute either to the international level of the standards. This is how also the national committees are also involved in the international level, or they can contribute in the CEN, CENELEC and ETSI, where we work at the European level, of course. This means also that here I leave you with an overview for when you will receive the slides. There are different ways of getting involved. As I mentioned many times, contacting the national committees or national standardization bodies. You can also engage in public consultations. And what does it mean? So in general, every time we have a standard being drafted, we send it for 12 weeks to a public inquiry period. And this is a moment where the standard becomes accessible to everyone, and it's possible to give comments and feedback on the standard. So this is, again, a way where you can get involved in standardization, in providing simply a comment and getting a look at the standard. You can also participate through associations. So, for example, industry associations. As I mentioned before, there is the Guide 25 about partnerships and liaisons organizations. So if you are a member of an industry association, probably you can also ask if it's relevant for you, that association to join and become a liaison organization of CEN and CENELEC. So in that case, you don't need to go via the national association, but you can become a direct liaison of the CEN and CENELEC. It is also important to know that there is support for SMEs. So there is SBS that provides financial and technical support to SMEs to engage in standardization. And there is a open call every summer by SBS to select experts representing SMEs in European and international standardization. And also the SMEs can participate through SBS member association, right? So there are a number of ways to getting involved in standardization, even if you're not directly participating via the national members. There are also other ways where you can get involved. This is something very nice. It's a guide 2017 that is about guidance for writing standards, taking into account micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises needs. And this has been done especially for raising awareness that the standards that we draft need to provide also a feasible way for these smaller enterprises to implement the standards, so that they are also possible to use by everyone. And it is important that the standards are understandable and are implementable by the SMEs. So this is a guide that is relevant for all of our technical committees, European and international levels. So if you are interested in this guide and you would like to become a member and advocate for a better use of this guide, and if there are aspects that you find important, we invite you here. It is available in 27 languages, so that is how important it is. We want it to be really accessible for everyone, and that our technical committees, they use it as much as possible. Here I leave you, it's not the purpose to read through all of the slides, but I leave you here a number of tools for small and medium enterprises, assuming that some of you come from such enterprises here, that this could be helpful for you. We have SMEs, national SMEs help desks, toolboxes, the Guide 17, as I was saying before. We also have a LinkedIn channel, a lot of videos to make a use case for the standards. So here I leave you the slides with a lot of useful links. I hope this will be helpful for you. And this is just a repetition, just to have more insights on how the Guide 17 is helpful. So I'm not gonna read it all, so that we can have some time. Finally, these are my last slides, talking a little bit about harmonized standards, because this is an important aspect of our work. Harmonized standards, we developed in close cooperation with the European Commission. The European Commission sends a standardization request to CEN, CENELEC, or ETSI. I didn't include ETSI in this slide. This is one that we use for internal presentations. And the standardization request can be issued to any of the three organizations, so CEN, CENELEC, and ETSI. And we evaluate the standardization request. We can accept it, of course, and that means that we can work on harmonized standards. Harmonized standards, once they are finalized and they are accepted by the Commission, they can be cited in the official journal of the European Union, and that is very important because they provide presumption of conformity for a given regulation. So here it's really reflects the regulatory objectives from the Commission, and we translate the technical the requirements from the law to technical requirements in a harmonized standard. Of course, the drafts are subject, the draft standards that we produce are subject to an assessment to ensure that the requirements that we are posting there are really in line to what is expected. So we are thinking that harmonized standards are really a translation from the law, from the requirements to a technical specification. So there needs to be there a fair way in which this is implemented. So once it has accepted by the European Commission, then we get this citation in the official journal. Here I leave you this. It's a little bit of a summary on how the harmonized standards are important. But again, their use is voluntary. It's not mandatory to use harmonized standards, but it's a way in which manufacturers, economic operators, conformity assessment bodies can use the harmonized standard to demonstrate the products, services comply with the relevant union legislation. Of course, any of these actors are free to choose any other ways, technical means to demonstrate compliance. But as we were discussing before, a harmonized standard is created in consensus, representing a number of European views of stakeholders. And if we think that the harmonized standards are translating then a number of regulatory requirements into how to comply to those regulatory requirements, then it can be, the harmonized standards are very strong documents guiding on how to comply then to a regulation. For the Cyber Resilience Act, do you remember I mentioned before the standardization request that the European Commission issues to the standards, to the organizations? We have received such a request from the European Commission, and there is a request for 41 deliverables, and Ultan has been showing before where are we developing each of these deliverables that we received in the standardization request. As you know, the CRA has, maybe you know, maybe you don't know, sorry, the CRA has different product categories, the products class 1, class 2, and critical products, and these are translated in different standards. Horizontal ones that are applicable in principle, these are generic frameworks to any of the product categories, they are product agnostic. And then we have a number of vertical standards have been requested for the specific product categories. And for these ones, we are working jointly with Senelec and ETSI, and some are only being developed at Sen and Senelec. So in the next coming slides, just like Ultan did, I will provide you an overview on how are we satisfying the standardization request at Senelec, where are we carrying out the work, and if you're interested, then the main message will be go to your national body and ask them that you want to join in one of the technical committees developing the standard that you are interested in. Don't forget that we develop the standards at Sen and Senelec, in this case, in a technical committee level. That's very important. So what I will show now is about technical committees. And inside each technical committees, there are working groups, so really smaller groups of experts that are having a dedicated scope. In a nutshell here, just for you to remember, and Ultan also showed the timeline, it's a process that is a little lengthy, so it takes more than 1.5 years, certainly, between 1.5 years and 3 years. And sometimes we really have to adjust our developments to the standardization requests that we receive from the European Commission. And how we are working on the Cyber Resilience Act. So we have these horizontal standards at the JTC 13 Working Group 9. Then we have a number of standards, line 16 and line 39 out of the 41 at the CEN-TC 224. We have a number of other standards at the CEN-TC 65X for OT aspects of the CRA or under vertical products based on the EN/IEC 62443. We also have the developments on smart meter gateways at the Working Group 6 of the JTC 13. And a number of standards related to semiconductors and trusted chips. So everything related to tamper-resistant microprocessors, microcontrollers, our smart cars, FPGAs, ASICs, everything at the CTC 47X. So if you wish to participate, you can go to your national members and request to be a member then and ask what are the requirements and pinpoint one of these TCs that we're showing you, technical committees. Finally, just like Ultan shared, we have these projects stand for CR2. And just like he showed, he has a number of positions available for ETSI work. We also have a number of positions available for the SEN and SENELEC work. And this call for tender is open for everyone. No need to be a SEN SENELEC member. The applications are open until the 11th of April. If you have any questions, you can contact me to ask anything about the application. But in general, when you receive these slides, you can click on the link and consult the call for tender there. This is my final slides. So I think I give back the floor to Ultan because he wanted to show you some details on how to join the ETSI work.
Thank you, Lucia. I'll go quickly through okay, right. I'll go quickly through some of the practicalities of how to get involved in ETSI activities. As I had mentioned earlier, we're a member-driven organization, so it's direct participation model. Therefore, obviously, participation is reserved for ETSI members, but we have a number of partnerships and relationships which can allow at least observer-level participation through a partnership. If any of you are working for a university or a research lab, do check with us if you have membership. You may already find your organization as a member. If you're working with a large corporation that is involved in the ICT industry, almost certainly your organization is a member. Assuming that you have membership, you need to get access to our portal. Our portal is the place where we do all of the real work or manage the work at ETSI. It's perhaps not the most user-friendly interface, but we do try and group everything there together. Incidentally, much of the information that I'm going to show you now is also available without a username and password to the world, basically, from the same portal address. So you won't be able to get personal related information. You won't be able to make contributions or register to the meetings without a username and password. You will be able to find out what committees are working on what work items are open, the status of the work. For all of the details, you can find out which meetings are taking place where, when. You just won't be able to register for them. So there's actually a very large amount of information available publicly. When you do get your username and password, you log into the portal on the top right-hand corner. The portal website address, by the way, is portal.etsi.org, quite simply. And how do I get a request? Say you think you're an ETSI member, you're not sure. Well, on the portal, in the pull-down menu under Manage, there is Manage Access. And underneath that, you'll find the account request menu items. Again, as I said, it's not the most user-friendly thing with menus like this, but everything is there. You can also change your password online and that sort of thing. As part of the account request process, we ask you to identify the ETSI member for which you're working. So that's one quick way of looking to see if your organization is an ETSI member. You go through the account request process and you see if your organization is listed there. Now, assuming you have access to the portal, if you are an ETSI member, if you have your username and password, then you will want to join a particular technical committee. And we do this through basically joining the email list. Much of the work is communicated and managed through email. So therefore, you basically need to go to, again, this Manage menu item and TB membership. And there, the important committee to register for is Technical Committee TC Cyber. That's where this work is taking place. So you need to join the main email list for TC Cyber. We have a separate email list for this subgroup, EUSR, that I mentioned. I'll show you this in a moment. We have full details of our work program, which is available online. You don't need a username and password to access the bulk of the information in this. So it allows you to search through many different search criteria. Through the technical committee will be the obvious one, but you can search through a particular standard number, through a title, through a piece of text in the scope statement. You can search according to the status. So all the unpublished work in TC Cyber, for example, would be an obvious query. which would be giving you all of the ongoing work items and their current status in our technical committee, TC Cyber. So I leave you to play around with that, but there's an enormous wealth of information available here for any, open to the world. It's not blocked by username and password. Now, we want to work inside TC Cyber. So how do I get access to it? So again, we open up the portal. We have logged in here on the top right. And in this set of rectangles on the top of it, what we call our technical body selector, you'll see Cyber. So having clicked on Cyber, we're in the Cyber group. So what can we see? We have separate tabs for the basic information on TC Cyber, basic information like the terms of reference, related reports, a public wiki, which we have, an open area that's also going to be useful. We will be making available the draft specifications open to the public, not just reserved for ETSI members. You will see down on the bottom left the leadership. If you're an ETSI member, you will be able to click on individuals and get their contact details. So be able to directly contact them, be they ETSI members or be they members of staff. On the right-hand side here, we'll see the email lists that are relevant. So the main one that you need is the TC Cyber email list, but you should also be looking at the ESOs email list, which is the second from the bottom that you can see here on the right. You basically need, as the very first step, to join the email list, because then you can see what the discussion is. You can get access to the archives as well for that email list. You'll get announcements for upcoming meetings and so on. You can also use these tabs here, especially the meetings tab, to discover what are the upcoming meetings. And I think that's what I have on the next slide. So if you click on the meetings tab for TC Cyber, you'll see which are the upcoming meetings. If you are registered to any of them, you'll find them on the top of this page. I'm not registered to any here. For every meeting, you'll find a summary information of the start date, the end date, whether it's online, where it's going to take place, the number of people currently registered, and the number of documents currently submitted. If you click on either of these two numbers or icons, you will be brought directly to the list of documents or the list of people registered for that meeting. Again, that information now is reserved for people with the username and password. You can see this screen and the numbers, but without the right to click on these icons on the bottom right here, without a username and password. So this is how much information is actually available to you without any direct username and password. To the very right of this, you have the C button, which allows you to make a contribution to that meeting. In other words, you want to send a document into that meeting. You click on that button. You fill in a template and with the information related to your contribution. You'll be assigned a document number and you'll be given a link to which to upload the document to the meeting directly. And the little arrow symbol is a symbol to register. Just click on that and you register that meeting to that meeting. If you are registered, you'll click on an opposite icon to unregister if you wish to unregister for a meeting. It's that simple. We have a help desk. If you have any query whatsoever about participating, please either call the help desk number or the email address helpdesk@etsi.org. We have some more information. I'm not going to go through it in detail about how to contribute directly to the standardization work. Our technical working procedures are available for everyone as part of our directives. I have given indications here about rapporteurships. There's a rapporteur's guide. I think we have a more, yes, we have a more up-to-date version of this. We have drafting rules. I recommend you read these if you wish to make a detailed technical contribution to one of our standards. Our delegates guide, our rapporteur's guide give you a lot of information about how to operate in an ETSI technical committee. If you have applied for the Stand for CR2 project, then this, what we call an STF, Specialist Task Force Experts Guide, will help you as to what are your obligations and how to record your time and how to participate and that sort of thing. And we have a number of other guides available here from our Edit Help service, who are the team who handle all of the document processing and editing at ETSI. You can access them directly again from our portal under Services, Edit Help, and they have a whole range of information available for you. And here are some direct links to their contact details. And once again, a reminder, I won't go through the slide, of the Stand for CR2, that the deadline is the 31st of March. Now, these slides are going to be made available to you. So all of these links, you can take them and click on them and work your way through this information at your own pace. But I do recommend you go through these in detail, particularly if you wish to participate and contribute to this work at ETSI. So I think I'll stop there and hand over to Matteo, who I think will...
Great. Thanks a lot, Alton. Thank you. And by the way, I'm also a user of that portal, so it was useful to receive some of those features, and I encourage everyone to go and check. Yeah, thank you for all the speakers to keeping the time. We allocated 1 hour for this webinar. I think it was very, very comprehensive, and we really hope to reuse this material to help everyone who wants to join this work. And again, I also keep learning things myself. I want to maybe see if we can keep a few more minutes, the speaker in the call. If there are any questions, Luigi, if you can help me out, if anyone has a question in the chat. But as a general rule, you can also keep contacting us via Cyberstand or directly the presenter, and we will be happy to tackle any question you might have. I don't see question in the chat, and I see that we're already on top of the hour. So I think maybe we can stop it there. Again, I want to thank you everyone for joining, but especially the speaker. I really hope to see you and see more people participating in these calls. I remind you that we have a webinar next week on how SMEs can benefit from standardization. And again, very crucial meeting on the 8th of April, hybrid meeting in Copenhagen with regard to the horizontal standard for the CRA. So with that, thank you again, everyone, and I wish you a good rest of the day and a good weekend when you get there. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.